Gods and a Brit. It's not great, but it's entertaining.
Truth.
I'm Lynn Hartram. I'm here with Caitlin Greer. Hey. And Lee Hazelnut.
Hey.
Right,
That was a really good impression of me, you fucking son
thank
of
you,
a
Kate.
bitch.
I've been practicing all week. Yeah.
Don't make fun of the fact that I just stutter over like the introduction. I don't know how to do it.
It trips you up every time.
Every time I'm like surprised. It's my turn.
Well, I should have just gone, hey, motherfuckers, what's up?
I know. I just
Well,
left.
even
it
that
alone.
sometimes is just questionable. Like, hey,
I don't know how to do it.
motherfuckers.
Oh, I'm like, oh, save me.
That's great. Well, we are back again today with the fabulous guest, Matt Moniz. Whee! Yay! Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? How's the day?
What's happened to Matt? He's been possessed.
Oh my
All
goodness!
right, sweetheart. How you doing, love?
I'm doing fine there, lady.
That's the whole show today, folks.
It's the Matt and Lee show.
Come on over for a biscuit, darling. Plenty for you here.
Oh, my
Now let's toss down a pint or two.
Oh my god, it sounds like two grandmas having a great conversation.
Matt's voice, it sounds like, you know that little kid in The Shining where he talks to his finger?
Oh, Tony.
Red rum. Red rum. Red
Yeah.
rum.
Yeah. Oh, Tony likes The Shining.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
that's really good.
that's fantastic.
Well, we were going to have Matt Moniz as a guest, but we've got Satan on instead.
Yes.
So, yeah.
There's a difference.
Oh god, we love you both.
That's
Well, thank you.
questionable. Sorry.
I was going to say, boy, you do have low standards.
Yeah.
No. that girl needs no encouraging, Matt. I'll tell you that.
No, sir.
7 weeks I've tolerated her now.
What? You love this.
every,
This is your favorite thing, is this.
every week. What you don't know, Caitlin, is when we do the show, I'm actually trying to work out your tattoos. I know they're Disney characters, but I try and sort of have a little. Well, it's just one big
Blob. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there's Snow White. You
that's
can see.
Snow White.
That's Lee's portrait.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah.
Oh, there you are, right there, waiting for the peanut butter to get licked off your nipples in your gimp suit.
Hey!
Full circle.
Yes.
So what are we
Oh,
going to talk about today?
I wouldn't mind that day, but the peanut butter was out of date. I mean, how's a guy supposed to work?
Ugh. Oh my god. Yuck.
And his use of Nutella? Leave that in.
It's a very literal use of
Yeah.
gross.
No, I'm waiting for the day where Dunkin' Donuts bring out flavoured condoms. I mean, that you know.
What are they going to
Okay.
taste
Oh,
like?
wow.
Piss water coffee?
And when are you going to be tasting them?
Well,
It brings a whole new meaning to Boston cream.
I was going to say, Lynn, you've observed me getting iced tea with cream.
I have, yes.
Yeah, so yeah.
So clearly you love the cream. Anyway. Moving on. This escalated quickly. It's been about 2 minutes and we're
Right.
talking about semen.
Yeah.
So you see, I took the high road.
welcome.
Ahoy, matey.
That's the
Oh,
kind.
that's great.
Now, here's a quick quiz for you, Caitlin and
Mhm.
Lynn and Matt. Matt, you'll know because I might have told you this, but Americans sometimes nickname British people limeys.
We do?
Well,
You do.
do you know
It's-
the actual history of where limey comes from? Okay.
It's because basically when our Royal Navy in the 1700s or whatever, when we used to go out and basically give Johnny Foreigner a bloody good hiding in for course of the Empire.
Yeah.
You wait till Matt pipes in. He might mention the fact that we lost twice.
Yes.
But to stop our seamen getting scurvy, we were issued a quarter of a lime for the
Yes.
for the Navy guys to stop them getting served every day. So that's where you guys called us limeys.
That's interesting.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Is
Correct.
that right, Matt? That's pretty much it, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Well,
He also
now
call us wankers, but
We still do.
That's a whole nother thing.
that's for a different reason. Still having
Well.
to do with the Navy. Anyways,
Right.
what are we talking about today, guys? Aside from dick jokes and lime eating semen, all my caffeine just kicked in about 30 seconds ago, so you guys are fucked. This is that's the end of it.
Right.
Oh God. Well,
Go ahead, Lynn.
no, I was just gonna say today I thought we would talk about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Cool.
Bum bum bum.
There it is.
Matt's cocaine's kicking in. We're all right. We're in
Nice.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm at the wrong house. Yeah.
Well, blow me away.
That's what he used to shout through the window at the RV. It was quite disturbing.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
Oh, and we're back.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So Matt, can you tell us what the Bridgewater Triangle
please
is?
rescue us?
Please.
Okay, the Bridgewater Triangle was so named by Lauren Coleman, the infamous cryptozoologist, in his book Mysterious America. The triangle, as defined in his book, is a 200 square mile area of, we'll call it high strangeness.
Okay.
Starting with one tip being in Abington, Mass., another tip being in Rehoboth, and the other being Freetown.
Okay.
It is a collection of very, very unusual happenings. The highest amounts of haunted in the area, as well as cryptozoological creatures being seen here, and a vast number of UFO reports.
Cool.
Hmm.
So it's got a little something for everyone.
A little something for everyone. Yes. Now, you had worked in a mental health field.
I did, yes.
Okay. Now, in this area, it was also the highest collection of mental health facilities in the state.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yes. So that's one of the things that's known about the area.
Wow.
There's been historical record of this having high strangeness going back to even, back before colonial times, the Wampanoags, who called the area the Hockomock, which means place where spirits dwell in the Wampanoag language. They even avoided the area. So it's like, it goes back thousands of years of a known area being not a place you really want to hang out, because weird things will happen.
Lee hates Memphis.
So that's the definition of it. Now, there's whole bunches of stories that are collected.
Wow.
And I assume that's where you want to go down, is that rabbit hole.
Yeah, of
Always
course
so.
we want to go down the stories, the scary stories or paranormal stories, rabbit hole. That's where I am. That's what I want.
live in this
Okay.
triangle, Matt?
Excuse me?
Does anyone live within the triangle?
Oh, it encompasses 200 square miles. There
Well,
are
is it
towns
just-
incorporated in it. So, yes,
right.
there
It's
are.
not just
yeah.
a forest or.
Do
Well, a good portion of it is the Hockomock Swamp. The Hockomock Swamp is what's left after the glaciers retreated from the area. It's a depression that is filled with basically runoff waters from higher elevations that slowly lend their way out into the ocean nearby. But it is the most dense forest or swamp area in New England. Some parts of it have not even been explored by man. It's that thick and that, we'll call it, remote.
wow, cool. How do you know? How big is your brain? I feel like you got so much info. We've literally
Well,
only talked about two
well,
topics, and you know more.
Well, you know what I do for a living? Shall I tell
Yes.
people what I do for a
Yes,
living?
please
Right.
do.
I am an
It's a bunny.
analytical I'm an analytical chemist. I work for a bioengineering firm. I work running their analytical department. I am also the director of research and development for a defense contractor developing armor and weapon systems for the government.
So your brain is fucking huge. Okay, moving on. That's all I needed to know is how big your fucking brain is. Larger than mine. So
Yeah. Just differently folded, let's put it that way.
Differently folded.
This is why, Caitlin, the 10 nights or so I spent on Matt's settee with him and Joe was just an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I'd learned so much.
Yeah. It's just a plethora of knowledge.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Especially about certain past presidents and their significant others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Dicks again.
It was nothing other than entertainment around it. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Usually I'm the one who's always talking about dicks, but it's just you two today. It's not me today. I'm a classy one of the bunch.
Well, you work with what you know, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is,
Yeah.
So anyways, tell us some tales.
Back to the triangle.
Of the triangle.
All right, let's start off with some of the more famous hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more famous hauntings is the red-headed hitchhiker of Route 44.
Ooh.
Knockdown Ginger.
Huh? Yeah, Ginger.
Knockdown Ginger.
Now,
Knockdown Ginger.
Knockdown Ginger. Basically, the story of folklore goes that a hitchhiker is seen on Route 44, which is a local, 2-lane road that goes from Plymouth all the way up to a place in New York. Along a particular stretch in a town called Rehoboth, an individual with red hair and a beard and wearing a flannel shirt and jeans is seen hitchhiking along the road, generally in the winter time.
Okay.
And it's said that if you pick him up or you park in a particular place, honk your horn 3 times, he appears. There's many different parts to the urban legend, but all of them all have the same description of the individual. Is basically a person in their late 20s, early 30s, long red beard, long red hair, and flannel shirt, jeans, and whatever. And he's been seen on the side of the road. He's materialized within people's vehicles. His face is seen in people's windshields as they're driving by. There's been a number of reports of it. And a lot of these reports come from people that don't actually know about the history of the road. Now, I was able to converse with one of the police officers from Rehoboth, and they actually remember the particular accident that occurred where this individual had basically passed on.
Oh.
So this is from a known, unlike all of the other hitchhiker, type of folklore that you hear, there actually is a kernel of truth, or we do know of a particular event that occurred, and this hitchhiker has been seen after this event.
Wow.
So, is it true? I can't say whether it is or isn't, but there is actual data to show that these events did occur.
Wow. Cool.
Okay. And what's interesting is he's seen in an area right next to a very famous rock known as Anawan's Rock in this area. And now most people don't realize that southeastern Massachusetts and parts of Rhode Island were part of the bloodiest per capita war in the United States at that time.
Did you say blood?
And
bloodiest. I'm just kidding.
I did say blood. But this goes back to, I'm sure you guys may have heard of it, but aren't familiar with it. It's known as the King Philip's War.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys familiar, or have you heard of it?
I have heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it.
What wound up happening is in the southern, southeastern Massachusetts, New England area, there was a war in the late 1600s between the colonists and the local indigenous people. Things had gotten to a particular head, and there was literally wholesale slaughter. They were raiding each other's places back and forth and just doing unspeakable, unimaginable things. But like I said, it's one of the bloodiest per capita wars that America had at the time. Now, the numbers I'm about to give you, you have to take into context of the time period. We're talking the late 1600s, which meant there weren't that many colonists here. There weren't that many. So there was somewhere around 5,000 colonists and over 10,000 natives wholesale slaughtered within a year.
Jesus.
And that's so when you're talking about up to 5,000 colonists, when you have a total of maybe 7,000 to 8,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking a significant number of the population.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying per capita.
Right.
We've had other wars where there were a lot more numbers, but there were also a lot more people in terms of percentage. What we're talking about here is,
like,
80% pure genocide on both. Yeah, we're talking pure genocide on both sides.
Wow.
But it's one of the wars that's, and it all happened right in this Bridgewater Triangle area.
Wow. That's honestly, I was going to ask you that question a little while ago. If anything major happened there, that would maybe draw sort of that kind of energy, but that's the answer. So there it is.
There you go. But like I said, on the stretch of 44 is what's known as Anawan's Rock. Anawan was one of the sachems or leaders of the local tribe. Anawan was captured there by Captain Benjamin Church out of Plymouth, Massachusetts. He was basically the captain of the guard in Plymouth that the Crown had put in place. He captured Anawan there, and he promised if he surrendered peacefully that he would be brought back to Plymouth to stand trial. Well, what wound up happening is that didn't go that way. Basically, what Benjamin Church did is he started marching them back, and the way the story goes is that Benjamin Church had to go to another place, and he told his men, take him to Plymouth. Well, his men took him to Plymouth, but they basically decapitated, drawn, and quartered him and hung his head on a pike outside of the gates of Plymouth.
What the fuck? Those guys are dicks.
Yeah, and that's also when they took the local Wampanoags, what's known as their wampum belt, which is the local history of the tribe. That was their history. It was adorned with various shells, precious metals, and gems, and whatever, and it told their story because they didn't really have a written language. And that belt disappeared. So now supposedly that there's a curse that's put on this area because until the belt is returned.
Oh wow!
Now, with Mr. Lee's help, I would like to see if this can be authenticated. Supposedly, the belt is in the British History Museum, and it's been found there, and they keep rehiding it. So, if you want to go poking around the museum looking for it,
I know where the British Museum is. I know where
that's a good start.
It's in Covent Garden. Well, I used to work up there for 2 years, and my colleague at the time, Ben, used to go to the British Museum in his lunch break. But I can certainly, I'd be happy to go there and have a look for it.
Yeah, at least confirm, the reports of it being said. It was on display, and then when a local that saw it said, hey, that's, that should be returned, and then all of a sudden the display disappeared. Obviously, they, several things.
Yeah.
They
but
misplaced it
that's
somewhere.
how the history goes. Now, the rocket where Anawan was captured has been haunted for centuries. And I myself personally have had my own encounter there. If you go up to the top of this rock, which is basically what's known as an agglomeration rock. It's, other people will call it pudding stone. It's a type of sedimentary rock that has round, smooth rocks in it that's all agglomerated together in like a big hard concretion.
Okay.
And on top of it, there's been encounters. I've seen these little balls of light moving around. And one of the other things, you know who Andy Lake is, right? He's another fellow researcher in the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew and I were up there one night doing our own little investigation around the anniversary of Anawan surrender. And we got this little light on video. And one of the other things that we happen to see is the ghost fires. So what that is basically when you're standing on top of the rock and you're looking into the woods, underneath the leaves, it looks like, you know how when you light a fire and you can see the light reflecting underneath the leaves?
Yeah.
Him and I both saw all of these fire lights underneath the leaves of the trees, but you look down and there was no fire there.
Oh,
It
weird.
was and there's tons of people that have all seen this. Several people have seen what they think is the ghost of Anawan himself at the rock.
Wow.
But, you know, contrary to popular belief, you know, the local indigenous tribe is not these little people. They were actually over 6 feet tall on average.
Wow.
Wow.
And, you know, so they described a tall Native American, you know, wrapped in what they call a type of tribal blanket. You know, they weren't running around naked like people depict and stuff like that. They, you know, so, and these are the reports that I take seriously because, you know, most people are thinking now they're just wearing a loincloth buckskin, you know, with the feathers. Like, no, that isn't how they were. They were actually very tall and they had clothing, you know, or were apparelled different than what you see on television portrayed. All right.
Right. Well, it's fucking New England. They would freeze to death if they were running around in fucking loincloths.
Correct. So, you know, those type of reports are quite common there on the rock. And like I said, the ghost of the redheaded hitchhikers right out there on 44 in the same location. Now, if you go up 44 and go into the heart of the triangle, there's 100 different places that are haunted within there that are old New England, you know, built in the 1700 type of colonial homes as well as facilities. I will now personally share a story that happened to me in one of these places when I was younger. Talking in my late teens, like 18. I was into this long before it became popular. You know, back in the early 80s, you know, this kind of stuff you would only see on In Search Of and things like that. And the only way you'd learn about this by going to the library and reading books by Hans Holzer and a number of different other individuals and whatever. And I got a report of from a friend. It's like, oh, you like haunted places? So here's a place in Bridgewater that, you know, it's kind of abandoned. It wasn't really abandoned, but it was not in use, and it was semi-historical or whatever, big old colonial. And I'm not going to get into the details because if people live locally, well, the place is in use now as something else. But back in the day, it was half boarded up. And I basically broke into the place and was running around, and I saw this figure, and it's like I chased it down a hallway, went down a hallway and turned a corner. It's like, I go running after it, and like I said, 18, young and invincible, and it was like,
Isn't it the other way around? The ghost chases you.
Yeah. Well, you know, well, I went down the hallway and I saw the thing up against a wall, and I'm like, now what are you going to do? I started, you know, challenging it.
Oh boy.
Well, this little black figure all of a sudden came at me, and when it came at me, it went from something about the size of maybe an 8 or 9 year old to something that towered over me. It literally lifted me 1.5 feet off the ground and threw me 5 feet backwards up against the wall.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, I slid down, ran down the stairs, kicked out the nearest window boards, and got
learned your lesson.
Dodge.
Yeah.
That's when I learned, okay, don't provoke.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe not chase them. Yeah.
Could you see facial features on it, Matt?
No.
It was just a shadow.
A black mass. And this is daylight. Yeah. I didn't go there. This was daylight when I went in.
Yeah.
And the best way I can describe the feeling, the feeling and the motion was you ever stand on the shore and these big waves, they pick you up and they'll throw you onto it. That's exactly what it was like. It wasn't like I was physically being manhandled. It was like a force of like what the water does when it picks you up and that type of thing and flung me back. Okay, I didn't feel any hands per se or anything like that. But that wasn't the part that really freaked me out, even though that wasn't exactly, but you get my point. That in itself was enough, but was what I felt in terms of, I'll call it emotional feeling. It was a feeling of, I've never felt this level of dread and helplessness, pure and utter helplessness and hopelessness. Okay. And that's what I felt from it. And I was like, don't mess with this thing because number one, it can do things that I can't stop. Number two, it's on some sort of level that, you don't want to be. You don't, it imparted whatever it was feeling to me at that time. And I was like, I've never felt that kind of despair, hopeless. The word hopelessness is the only thing I can come up with that even comes close.
Now, was that your first like real encounter with something that?
That was my first encounter that I've had physical interaction with. When I was younger, I've had other things that I've seen happen, objects moving and, faces peering around the corner, and that's what got me into it. So I figured I'd go check this place and, 18 and invincible, okay. I found out that I'm not so invincible.
Yeah, lesson learned.
So when you did you at the time, because obviously that's an incredible thing. So did you go back and tell like your mates about it, and did they?
Oh no, not for years. Because number one, I didn't want it to be disturbed.
Yeah.
I figured, let that whatever's there, let that be. Yeah. Now I had a number of stories of what I heard about. I gotta be careful. Like I said, I don't want people going messing with it. Basically, it was a judge that had basically created an orphanage for kids. He was collecting cash and he was doing stuff with the kids. And okay, leave it at that.
Yeah,
you got where I'm going.
Yeah.
Move along.
Oh, God.
Ugh.
That's horrible.
And there are several other haunted places all within the triangle itself. Like I said, the Bridgewater Asylum there, well known to be haunted there, especially their basement.
Right.
Tons of stories out of there. I mean, there's a number of other mental health facilities all throughout the location.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, I find it interesting. It seems like there's a lot of asylums that are haunted. This is kind of a tangent, but a lot of haunted asylums. And I'm always curious, just having worked with that population, often there's a disconnect from reality, which is why, the truly psychotic ones, I realized that, back in the day, asylums weren't necessarily only for people with mental health issues, but the truly psychotic patients, there's a disconnect from reality. And so I wonder if after they pass away, if they were to pass away in that facility, if that carries on after that, so that there's some sort of disconnect and maybe they're not understanding what's really happening to them. And that's part of the haunting. I don't know. I'm curious. Any thoughts?
Well, my thought is not that it's from the people that are truly psychotic. My thought is it's haunted by the people that actually weren't, but were tossed, in other words, like the same reason why prisons are also always being haunted. You have a person that is, actually of sound mind, but they're imprisoned.
Yeah.
And, I can't get out that despair and that type of mental anguish because I'm put in a place where I shouldn't be.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine, those places often similar to prisons, I would imagine probably have a fair different number of hauntings within them.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because that would definitely be a really difficult environment to be in if you were, of sound mind, and here you are locked up with these individuals who are not, who oftentimes are very aggressive simply because they don't have that connection with reality. And so they lash out of fear or, just overwhelming emotions that is going to then play into the emotions of the people that are in there that are of sound mind. I mean, that would be terrifying.
Right.
Yes. Well, bear in mind, we're going back several decades that
Yes.
they would do stuff like this. And I'm sure you know the history of how, they used to run these facilities. People that were put in there were not, like I said, always just mentally disabled. Some of them had a physical disability that the family didn't want, the rest of the world to, the society to know. So they put them in these facilities. Just because you had a physical disability or deformity, but their mind was still, not affected. So you think about that. Just because you have a deformed arm or leg or, some other element, you're now tossed in this place that it was filled with people that were, we'll call them bug nuts.
Yeah.
So how,
Nutters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, that place that you sent me to when I was in America, that place in Philadelphia that I went to, the fucking hell, mate, that was
Penn State.
So say again.
Penn State.
Yeah. But it's basically an old abandoned prison.
You went there?
Right.
I went there. Yeah, I went there. Yeah, Matt. It was on Matt's recommendations. I think Matt just said, just go anywhere. I've had enough of you. Just go anywhere. It just so happened to be a prison, but Matt said, if you're in Philadelphia, you've got to go to this place. So it's basically an old abandoned prison, and it is they talk about Alcatraz being, this big tourist show. This place, oh God, it was the creepiest place I've ever been in. It was basically an old abandoned prison.
Yep.
That was it was complete isolation. So the prisoners weren't even allowed to speak. Right. And they had to put socks over their shoes because if they walked about in their cell, they didn't want the sound of footsteps. That's how quiet it was. And basically they all went fucking mad because they spent 10 years. When I say the cell, it's literally, I don't know, size of someone's bathroom.
Wow.
It was literally a bed, a toilet, a sink, and that's generally it. And they would literally just live in that for 10 years, talking to no one. Literally a tray of food. And basically, it's I can't remember when it shut down, but it
shut down in the late 60s.
In late 60s, there you go, man. And it's literally just it's as far as you can see. There's all these corridors. It's like a big round thing in the middle. It's like if you viewed it from above, it would look like a spider. It'd be like a big round thing in the middle, and a corridor there, a corridor there, a corridor.
Yeah.
It was just amazing to be there. But they said that they do ghost haunts there, and there's the spirits of people there, and it was so eerie just to be there. Thanks for that, Matt.
Thanks for the thanks for that.
Yeah, but I messaged you back the same day and said, this place was brilliant. Right. I mean, well, it shouldn't be brilliant, but it was.
The place is called Eastern State Penitentiary.
That's it, Eastern State Penitentiary, and it's just down this little street. And there's people that live opposite it, and it's bizarre. There's a little coffee house opposite, and
coffee house.
Ugh. There's a coffee house opposite it. It's literally on a street. Yeah. It's not out in the sticks. It's not out like in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
It's on the edge of the city.
It's on the edge of the city. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I walked there from 31st Street in Philadelphia. I think I've got off the train and just walked.
Yeah, all depends upon where you're at. Yeah, it is within walking distance. And it's also the first penitentiary. It was in that the penitentiary is a name that comes from the people that built it because they were of religious nature and they wanted each individual to be isolated and be penitent.
Yeah.
Hence the name penitentiary.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They had Al Capone's cell there as well because he did some time there.
It's interesting.
So they had his little cell there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tell us more. Tell us more.
Okay. All right. Let's get into cryptids.
Okay.
Found in the area. Now, cryptids, for those that don't know, cryptids are cryptozoological creatures, which means creatures or animals that have not yet been discovered by science or found, we'll call it, effective evidence enough of their existence. This includes things like, unicorns and, stuff like that, as well as other creatures that are not as mysterious or mythical. The gorilla was originally considered a cryptozoological creature until the late 20s, a certain type of gorillas, the mountain gorilla that they found later, like in the 20th century. So they're still finding cryptozoological creatures today, large ones. There's a particular type of ox as well as a type of deer that they found in Vietnam. So it's not just, mythical so-called creatures, of which Bigfoot or Sasquatch is also included in that category.
Right.
It just means the study of unknown creatures. That's what cryptozoology means. But in the Bridgewater Triangle, there are several different types of these creatures that are seen. There's been a number of reports of a particular Bigfoot type creature. There's been a number of reports of very, very large snakes. One of the descriptions saying that as large, thick around as a stovepipe.
No,
there's also
fuck? That's a big snake.
Yeah, yes.
Matt likes to brag about his snake, by the way, Caitlin.
Yeah.
The old stovepipe.
This is why he's getting no success on Bumble.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Whole new meaning to spitting cobra. But getting back on topic here, there's also these large, what they call demon dogs. These are like enormously large dogs with glowing red eyes.
So like the hellhounds you hear about.
Yeah, various hellhounds. And the other locally known, we'll call it creature, something called a puckwedgie, which is a small, we'll call it elf-like creature that's been said to roam the forests around here.
It sounds cute.
It does. It sounds like the cousin to a mugwai or something.
Oh, a little puckwedgie.
Well, actually, they were not that they were good or bad. They're more indifferent, but they're mischievous little creatures, and they would lead you into the woods with a little ball of light. You would follow them in the little ball of light, and wind up meeting your end or whatever. And they're similar to what's known as a Taipaiwonka type of creature. They're mischievous, elfish, impish pucks type of thing that have been seen. But yeah, local legend of what we call around here Hakamakari, large, bipedal, hairy creature. One famous incident that happened in 1972 in Bridgewater was what was called the bumper shaker incident. A person that had I believe it was a rabbit hutch or chicken coop or some animals in the backyard, type of thing. That they were raising for whatever reason. This creature kept raiding their their animals and taking them and eating them and whatever. One night, the guy was actually able to see the creature in the backyard, called the local police. The police came and checked out the backyard, and there was nothing there. But when they got into their police cruiser to take off, they backed up and they backed into this creature that literally picked the back end of the cruiser up and started shaking the cruiser. At which point, once the back tires were actually let back down on the ground, these cops drove off and refused to go back without the state police and a whole bunch of other guys with guns.
Wow.
So, and there's been several other incidents throughout, the past few decades. As a matter of fact, I got a report and a photograph of one of the footprints at the Indian Bridge, which is Native Americans made this little bridge that goes over a river. Mm-hmm. And there's it was found, the print was actually found by a set of ghost hunters doing a documentary about the local ghost legend of the horse carriage, ghost horse carriage that goes over the bridge. And they wind up finding a Bigfoot print.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's great, though.
Yeah, that's what's great about the Bigfoot sightings is they happen locally around here, all over the place. And the Hockomock is definitely a very dense swamp, so anything can really hide in there. Right. And it's got a little something for every kind of paranormal. You may not get what you're looking for, but you're just like the other day. A couple of weeks ago, I was taking some local BFRO guys, a Bigfoot research organization, out in. It was actually in Lakeville. We were out at a place called Betty's Neck where there was a Bigfoot sighted there a couple of years ago. And we're out there looking, and then all of a sudden we have a UFO sighting. So just because you go out there looking for one thing doesn't mean you're going to find it, but you can find something else paranormal.
What the fuck is your life?
Right? I know. I was just thinking the same
Your
thing.
life is awesome. You're like, then I just got tossed around by an entity and I saw some UFOs. It's just a regular weekend. Totally typical. Wow. I love it. I want to have your life.
It comes with its drawbacks too.
Yeah.
But at least you got a cool story to tell at the end of the fucking day. Damn, man. Cool. Sorry. Keep going.
All right.
Tell me more.
Keep going. All right. On the same stretch of 44 where the ghosts are seen, there in the 1970s, late 1970s, there's a little, you call it basically a little local pizza joint. Mm-hmm. Building, single floor building with, where you get pizza and subs and stuff like that. But, in the 70s, people were there eating and a UFO landed in the parking lot.
Did they get a pizza?
They were hungry.
What were their feelings about pineapple on pizza? Because that's a big thing.
It actually physically landed in the corner of the parking lot. Several people saw it. It actually stayed parked there for about a minute and a half.
What the fuck?
And then slowly lifted back off and took off.
Where was this?
Route 44, Rehoboth.
Okay.
Do you know what, Matt? Do you know what? The first thing that's gone to my mind is that building still there?
Yeah.
So the car park's still there.
I don't think it's a pizza place anymore, but the building's still there.
The car park's still there.
Or the parking lot. Damn.
Yeah, I know where you're going, but I'm not sure if it's been resurfaced.
If you went down there with Geiger counters.
I know where you're going, but I believe it's been redone. Not necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. Just yeah.
What the fuck?
There is a UFO pizza in Salem.
I know, and I've heard it's amazing.
It's pretty good. I don't think they have the same history, though. Unfortunately,
probably no. They don't have a parking lot.
No, it's right in the little green area where the Bewitched statue is.
What the fuck?
That's crazy.
Everyone loves pizza. See, that's the point.
It's
the
universal.
They probably parked up and thought, you know what? Not with those prices. We'll try down the street. Yeah.
We have 2 for $1 down the street. Yeah.
They then founded UFO Pizza. in
Yeah.
Salem.
God, now I want
Brings a whole new
pizza.
definition to local delivery.
Seriously. Imagine.
The thing is, back then, is no one really. Well, it's not like today. Everyone's their own news report with a phone. Nowadays, you just film it, wouldn't you? But back in the 70s, who walked around with a video camera and a camcorder? No one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's those. It's
Wow.
There's, like I said, there's the police report of it, and there's the newspaper report of the sighting. That's about it. That's all you had back then.
Was there any description of the craft?
Yeah, your basic saucer that was about the size of a car.
Gotcha.
Landed silver disc that just basically came down, sat in the corner of the parking lot for about 90 seconds, and then took back off.
Really cool.
It was one of these things. Is like, okay,
Yeah, that just happened.
Yeah.
It's like, the fuck? I just wanted a sub. I'm over here trying to get a sandwich.
Well, Ryan Sprague, just quick. When I saw Ryan Sprague at UFO Congress in Phoenix, he told a similar story in the 70s. And of course, it's a time when no one had mobile phones to film it and stuff like that. But it was one of you. We don't have them here, but you have them in these open air cinemas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people were watching the film.
They're called drive-ins.
Driving. People were watching the film, and basically this huge craft appeared above the screen. It was so big that it blacked out all the stars, and literally just hovered there for X amount of time, and then just basically tilted off.
They didn't pay to see the movie.
No, but it's happening where a large amount of people have witnessed it, but they haven't got the means to film it.
Right.
In the same sort of decades. I think you said 70s, but yeah, it's
super.
They just wanted to see what was playing. They're like, hey.
They're like,
we've seen this one.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, maybe. I don't know. My dad's in that film.
Yeah, like, hey, there I am.
Well, he's a skinny one with a long arm. That's my dad. Yeah, but sorry, Matt, I'm cutting in.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Quite all right, Lee.
Matt, unfortunately, you don't get to see the faces. Oh,
it's all good.
Lee.
All right, now I'll get back to a few more of the stories out there. Now, staying in the UFO vein, there were a couple of reporters, late 70s, early 80s. They were coming back from one of their local things that they were doing or reporting on, something innocuous like a town voting on a particular this or that. So on their way back to the news station, they came across what they call a very large home plate shaped UFO that flew over their vehicle and over the road that they were driving on, witnessed by countless people. So it's like we have known reporters, television, and that said, yeah, we saw this.
Cool.
So plenty of other reports similar to that in the area. A good number of abduction cases out of the triangle as well, that we know has definitely occurred. There's been a number of other landing sites that have been witnessed, not necessarily pizza parking lots, but out in various fields and cranberry bogs out here and stuff like that. So a number of sightings seen above the swamp. One of the other, getting back to cryptozoological creatures, are reports of what are called thunderbirds. Are you familiar with those?
Just the plane.
Yep,
just the plane, not the animals. Yeah.
Okay. The thunderbird is mythological in nature as far as some people are concerned. It's a very large bird And birds did get very large back in the day. And
Dinosaurs.
this is, well, that's one of the other things that's supposedly seen too is what's known as a pterosaur, which is a pterodactyl.
Nice.
Which,
oh, Caitlin's going now. Sorry. Caitlin has a love for dinosaurs.
I love dinosaurs.
Well, supposedly there's been a pterodactyl that's been seen inside the swamp, but a lot of these other reports of what are known as thunderbirds are actually very large eagle or buzzard-like birds, but the size of a Cessna.
Wow! What?
Yeah,
That's
huge. That huge. That's what I'm saying. Very,
That's
very,
fucking
very
scary.
huge. And on top of in the Bridgewater, actually, it's in a town of, I believe it's in Easton, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of these large thunderbirds standing in the middle of the road that was almost hit by a state trooper.
Jeez, imagine.
So, like I said, it was on Bird Hill Road or whatever.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
But
The thing's got a sense of humor.
But
imagine if that thing was shit on your windscreen. You fucked, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck this. It's bad enough when a pigeon does it.
Well, the report from the officer said that as he drove by it, this thing was standing on the side of the road, crossing from one side to the other, over 6 feet tall, standing.
Wow.
Blimey.
Yeah, so that would make, if you would to judge the wingspan on that, if it's roughly standing about 6 feet tall, that would make its wingspan, because it's generally a 2-to-1 ratio of over 12 feet, 12-foot wingspan.
What the fuck? That's terrifying. Listen, love dinosaurs, hate birds. Birds freak me the fuck out. The concept of a 6-foot bird, like, nope. Nope.
Yeah, but
Goodbye.
Hey, Caitlin, think about the omelette that you can make out of its egg.
I do love eggs.
You know,
Bright side to a train wreck.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yum. Fucking Thunderbird omelets.
no.
Crazy. Wow.
I don't like it.
You don't like
That's
it.
fucking scary. That's super scary. I just can't even imagine driving in my vehicle and being like, oh shit, look at that fucking super tall bird. And then just like continuing on with my life. Like, I can't imagine. I would have to be committed after that day. That would be the end of my...
That's where Caitlin would have the fall over and not move on the ground. Like,
I'm scared.
The incapacitating
I would have
fear.
to stop my car and fall on the ground. That's what I have.
The bird being like, what a weirdo.
fuck? And then flap its gigantic wings and peace out because, oh, I hate it.
Oh my gosh.
Gross.
I think it's amazing.
It is amazing, but it's so scary. That's scarier than
Well,
anything else.
Well, there's obviously more
if
than
you
one.
guys come, what was that?
Well, there's obviously more than one of them, isn't there?
Well, there's been several reports of those thunderbirds over the past few decades. As a matter of fact, last year was a report. I want to say it was a daycare preschool type of place where one of the teachers saw the thing flying over the play yard.
Ooh, yeah, I was gonna eat the fucking
to the point where she actually rounded all the kids in. Yeah, she rounded up all the kids out of the yard.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I mean, I know that like when you have small dogs, you have to watch out for hawks. So I guess if there's small children, you should watch out for thunderbirds.
Yeah.
In that area.
Well, where I live, I have a bald eagle that hangs out on the tree outside my house.
Oh,
and those
cool.
are
That's
actually
awesome.
quite large.
Yeah,
they
are
really,
really
really big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from what I understand about these reports, that these thunderbirds make these things look like chickadees.
Wow.
What the fuck? I'm gonna have really awful nightmares. I'm gonna just be dreaming of gigantic birds. They freak me out so much.
I love how you love murder and gore and ghosts and demons and all
It's
this
birds.
stuff, but a bird freaks you out.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin, is there any bird that you like?
I don't mind like owls.
What about a flamingo?
Flamingos?
What could a flamingo do?
What about a nice little robin at Christmas?
What the fuck? What
Robin at
do
Christmas.
robins and Christmas have to do with each other?
Oh,
Well, no,
It's a British
bird.
thing. It's got to be.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Fuck, of course it does, because nothing makes sense. Oh, the Christmas robin's here because Father Christmas says birds and eggs and Christmas. I can't.
Hey, you want some eggs, huh?
There she is. That's the Christmas robin.
Right. Okay. I'll just ask if you like Christmas robin, but
I don't know
clearly
what
the
a
answer's
Christmas
no.
robin is. No, I don't really love. There's no real
bird you like.
that I'm like thrilled to be around, but like I guess parrots and
Yeah, they're big too, though.
A what?
They're
what?
parrots don't like a parrot,
What did you say?
like a parrot.
I think he's doing that on purpose.
Yes.
Don't get it.
I'm blonde.
What do they do? What do they do? They repeat themselves.
You're a bitch. Repeat that, bitch.
That's what your parrot would say.
Yeah, my parrot
You're a
would be
bitch.
like, "Fuck you, fuck you." Nope, just whatever. Moving on. I hate birds. I'm scared of them. That's enough.
Oh, you chicken.
Yay!
He's good.
I know. I stop acting like a turkey. I get it.
I mean, you're getting yourself into a bit of a flap, Caitlin.
Oh my god.
Poor Caitlin. This
No,
is
no.
going to be like the stuff of her nightmares.
I'll stop
Quit
squawking. I'll
ruffling her
stop
feathers.
squawking. Bastards.
Right.
Oh,
Let's see if we can claw our way out of this one and move
Oh
on.
my God.
there is a pecking order.
Hey!
And to get one in.
I like it.
We won't get into cocks, though, will we?
I like those. I'm not
Well, these
tired
you-
of those.
It leads you to being henpecked.
Matt, you found the one bird that Caitlin likes.
I'm not scared of a cock. That's for sure.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy.
My husband's gonna love that. He's so proud.
Oh, God.
Make him proud.
Mm.
Anyways, tell me more. What else do we got going on in the Bridgewater Triangle? Now that we're
Well, like I said, a lot of mental health issues in the area.
Mm.
That hence why we had a lot of the, as we will call them, various asylums and that. Also, there's, how do I put this delicately?
don't put
Oh,
it
then-
delicately.
Yeah, there's no need on this show.
Well, it has to do with a delicate subject.
Okay.
Okay. There's been a lot of miscarriages and birth defects
Oh, really?
wow.
in the area. Yeah.
Mm.
Although that may be something more environmental
Right.
Yeah.
in the area, but it's still one of these things that happen.
Right.
Right.
High degree of that kind of stuff as compared to surrounding areas.
That's interesting.
Huh.
Now you see why I was trying to approach
Yes.
it lightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So.
nice of you.
That is
I don't approach anything lightly, which is why I don't have any friends.
not true.
But that's okay. That's crazy. That's insane. So,
Okay, I have a question.
Go on.
Unless you had one.
no,
that
no,
you were
no.
gonna
Go, go,
ask.
Sure.
go.
So I'm sure that you or others, or both you and others, have gone out, taken all kinds of readings using different devices in this area.
Yep.
Is there any weird type of electromagnetic anomaly? Any type of
Yes.
anything funky in the area?
Yes, most definitely, yes. Magnetics are definitely a factor in here. A number of cases where we've taken people out to certain spots where compasses start acting wonky, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
A number of places, especially like in the Freetown State Forest, we took a film documentary crew in there one day, and it's actually in the film, the Bridgewater Triangle documentary, starts messing with electronics. Batteries die, lights go on and off. We had this happen on the Bigfoot expedition. Here you are thinking, let's go do this. And one of the other encounters that we had last year with the Bigfoot researchers when we did a thing in the Bridgewater Triangle behind the dog track is they're, listening for recordings of Bigfoot howls and, the wood knocks, and they play the recording back and they got a ton of EVPs. Ooh. And their batteries started dying and the flashlights went out and, and we're talking brand new, out of the package, store-bought batteries, brand name, good stuff that's supposed to be, that will work in your remote control at home, controlling your TV for months.
Right.
Out of the package, they're running flashlights that die in 5 minutes. And then you drive out of the area and all of a sudden battery comes back.
Oh, that's even cooler to me. That's so wild. That's so freaking incredible that things like that can mess with. There's so much energy that we are so unaware of that it's wild. It blows my mind. I love it.
Well, when we were doing one of the investigations behind the dog track looking for Bigfoot, a lot of the teams would have walkie-talkies, and you couldn't communicate. Even though they're theoretically working, you couldn't hear anybody. You'd cue the mic and you'd try and talk, and the other people couldn't hear you, even when we were standing, within visual range.
Right.
Where we could actually just yell out to them. You hit the walkie-talkie and they couldn't hear anything, and they're theoretically functional.
That's super scary.
Go back to base, and where the camp was, and all of a sudden they were all working again.
It's really crazy.
Now, do you ever kind of, I don't know if this would be conversely, but do you ever get strange voices that come through the walkie-talkie?
Yeah, but you can't rule out that that's not like radio signal from other things.
Right. Yeah. Especially if they're acting all wonky.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. And you've had a lot of firsthand experience too, which is really interesting. That's pretty awesome. So you're just like wandering around the Bridgewater Triangle in your spare time, just looking for shit.
I do take people out.
You do?
And do little tours. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
cool.
awesome.
Well, guess what's coming?
Lynn and Caitlin, you're gonna dislike me so fast. You're gonna leave me in the middle of the woods. You're gonna be like, I don't know, bitch, compass, walkie-talkies. She's gone forever. UFOs, a big bird. Came and ate her.
I'll take you to one place that I'll give you the story of what happened to me there. And this has all three type of things happening at in one location. It's called the Ledge in the Freetown State Forest. Now, the Freetown State Forest is well known to have satanic cults working in it. It's the only confirmed case where they found, tried, and convicted satanic worshipers of killing some people and leaving their bodies in the forest.
When was that?
Okay. That was in the 80s. Actually, the person that they convicted, his name was Carl Drew. He's still in jail today, responsible for killing a couple of prostitutes. But this also connects back to a number of other crimes that happened. But it's also an area where it's halfway in between Providence and Boston, and it's also where the mob dumps a lot of bodies.
Oh, my brothers in arms.
But the Ledge has a number of paranormal things that happen there. The first time I got introduced to it, a couple of decades ago, by a couple of locals that knew that I was into UFOs. So I was like, oh, let's go up to the Ledge because it's a very high prominence. It's part of an old quarry. So it's called the Ledge because there's like 100-foot sheer drop that goes down into the water.
Danger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how quarries are. They have high ledges. So that's what this place was. And when you come up to the top of the ledge, you get to see a good like panoramic view of 3/4 of the sky.
Wow, cool.
So it's a good high point to do sky watching.
Yeah.
So the first night they ever brought me up there, it's like, okay, we're going to drive up to the ledge. We parked the car, and one of the guys like, yeah, go right through between those two trees and that rock over there, and it'll open up into the clearing at the top of the ledge. So I'm like, okay. I get out of the car, I walk between the tree and the rock, and I look out, and I see this rocky outcropping out in front of me, and a woman standing at the edge of the outcropping. So I turned around to the guys and like, hey, we're not alone out here. And I turned back, and the woman was gone. Yeah. I go running over to the edge. Is like, oh shit. My first thought is,
she
the
fell.
chick jumped.
Right.
Yeah, she fell. Or she jumped. Oh. I go running over, and I look over, nothing. Wow. And my two friends come over to that space where I was looking, and they're like, what? He's like, there was a woman here. I turned to say, and she's gone. And they both started laughing like hell at me. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
And they're like, dude, you just saw the lady of the ledge.
Wow.
It's a ghost that, somebody that had died. Now, what's interesting about this ledge is somebody dies there every year.
Really?
Oh.
Known document. It happens every year because people go up to the top of this thing. They light fires. Mm-hmm. Up there and party, and somebody eventually stumbles off and goes tumbling down.
So it's an accident rather than, it's not like a well-known suicide spot. It's just basically.
Well, I was going to say it's also well known for people to jump to their deaths.
Yeah. God.
It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I go there to look for UFOs, and I come across a ghost.
Yeah,
right. Here's another thing. Okay, here's where the paranormal crosses over again. Another person I know came up to the top of the ledge to look for the lady of the ledge, waiting for the ghost. He's looking down the ledge and looking at the water. There's a trail down below that you can see from the top, where it's part of the trail that comes up to the top of where you're at, so you can look down. And so he's looking down at the water and at the trail across the water from, he's basically looking for other people, seeing if they're going to be driving or coming up. And he sees the local Bigfoot there walking down at the bottom of the ledge.
Cool.
Other people have been there. Other people have come there, to party, and UFOs came right up to the edge of the ledge down below and raised up along the edge up to their level, took off over the top of their heads, and went over the trees behind them. So it's just like everything is seen there. Every kind of thing is seen there.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I also got recent Bigfoot report out of that same area. It's basically what's known as a road runner, a Bigfoot that runs across a road. It was seen by one of the local, because it's a state forest, so they have park rangers. Mm-hmm. It was seen by the park ranger going around one night, locking up all the gates. He almost ran into the thing stopped in the middle of the road, basically roared at him, and went running off into the road, running off into the woods. And
that's one hell of a way to end your night.
Yeah, right. Like, I just wanted to lock the gates, man. I just wanted to lock the gates.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
That's insane.
That's really
cool.
So
the Bridgewater Triangle really has a little something for everyone.
Sounds like it.
It does.
If you want something paranormal to happen, you're pretty much guaranteed it to happen, just not necessarily the one you want.
Right. Yeah, you don't get to pick your. But I kind of like that about it. I kind of like, you're coming for UFOs. You're seeing a ghost today, my friend.
Bitch ass.
Yeah.
You want to see?
You want to see?
You want to see a ghost? Here's a fucking 27-foot bird.
Instead,
have fun sleeping.
Yeah. Oh well, we can't give you this, but we got you this instead.
Yeah. So that's really cool.
It is really neat.
So all the UFOs are going out and getting a pizza tonight, but we got Bigfoot, or this ghost, or there's a lady on the ledge instead. The choice is yours.
Oh, now I'm going to get a pizza tonight. Thanks, aliens.
That's Caitlin's takeaway from the story.
Thanks, UFOs.
Never knew that.
Well, I feel uneducated. I feel like I've lived here my whole life and I know nothing.
I know. I've heard of it, but I'm really surprised that it's not. I mean, I know people know of it, certain people but I'm surprised it's not more well known.
Right.
What, the Cryptozoology Museum or the
the Bridgewater
Triangle?
Triangle.
Well, pick up the book by Lauren Coleman, Mysterious America. There's also another book directly named The Bridgewater Triangle, written by Christopher Bolzano.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to the Bridgewater Triangle documentary.com, which is the whole documentary on it, done by Aaron Casu and Manny Familiari.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, cool.
That's
I
good.
think are we good? I don't know.
Okay,
More
just
questions?
one more question, one
Go
more
ahead.
comment.
Go.
One thing that I can't stop thinking about. So it was the very first one you were talking about, the hitchhiker ghost.
Yeah.
Yep.
The ginger.
Yes, the
Yeah,
ginger.
the redheaded
Knockdown
hitchhiker.
ginger.
Yes.
Yeah.
He sounds kind of hot. Just saying.
Well, one of the things you said was that sometimes he just appears in people's cars.
Oh my
I'm
God.
thinking that's a very brave ghost to just appear in someone's car in Massachusetts.
I mean, he's a ghost. What
Yeah.
the fuck's going to happen to him? He's already dead.
Well, you know the way we drive around here. Although, again, to clarify, in Massachusetts, we don't drive, we aim.
Yes.
Accurate. It's very
Yeah.
accurate.
Well,
Yes.
Well, Matt, just so that redhead hitchhiker guy, as Lynn said, so he appears in people's cars. Is it in
Yes.
physical? Is it in physical form?
Yes. Yes.
It's a physical form.
Holy
According to the
shit.
witnesses that have had it happen, it's like 1 minute you're driving along, next minute you have somebody actually just physically sitting in your car with you. Generally, he winds up in the back seat. Is what's
Even
most
worse.
common.
no.
Even worse.
Fuck
I'm
that.
like, I would be like, I'm gonna die.
Fuck.
That would be my first thought.
You know,
I'm gonna die.
I check my back seat before I get into my car. I swear to God, I do it all the time.
Okay, I have seen a ghost in my back seat one time.
No.
Yeah, I have. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
fucking
assuming I
hell.
could see through him, and there was no one sitting in my back seat. But I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was
Yeah.
someone back there.
So my
Yeah,
whole life,
That's what most of the reports are, yeah.
my whole life I've been like preparing myself for a strange alive person in my back seat. And now I need to prepare myself for the entity that's gonna fucking show up too. Cool.
I've had a person in the boot of my car, Matt, but that was in my old serial killer days. But that was
Yeah.
Mm.
so.
Matt, I keep telling him one day these tapes are going to be evidence.
Yes.
You did
Yeah.
say that, Lynn. Yes.
Yeah. He keeps admitting to it
It's all good.
every episode.
Every day.
More and more is coming out. Isn't
Yeah.
It? Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And the murder weapon.
Explains the
is-
gimp suit.
Yeah.
It's all becoming clear now.
Explains all the victims' bodies found that have peanut butter remnants. Like, it's just a really weird situation.
And for those of you not understanding the peanut butter reference, go back and listen to the Lizzie Borden episode.
True that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Inside jokes, bitches.
People have switched off after 12 minutes anyway, Lynn.
It's
So,
fine.
yeah.
No, it's fine. It's
Yes.
fine. It's all fine. So cool. I
Wow.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's hundreds of stories that you could tell us.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you for sharing
Thanks,
what
Matt.
you did share.
That was amazing,
That's
Matt.
brilliant.
Not a problem, guys. Anytime.
Totally just trumped us again.
One last question. Can you come on here every week? It would be a help.
Well,
we
what
wouldn't
I
have to
can
do any
I
work.
can do for you is set you up with some of the other people that are particularly specific to some of these reports.
That'd
Would
be
that help
pretty-
you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would
Yeah.
be very cool.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That's amazing. Wow.
Inside scoop.
With Caitlin.
All right.
with-
Mind if I put my own little plug?
Yes.
Absolutely. Please
Plug
do.
away.
All right. one of the
Is this a
ways
butt
people
plug,
can
Matt, is it?
no.
Always
I was
Heard
just
that
trying
line
to
from you
promote.
before, and it's, you know, it all ended in tears that night.
Oh God!
Let him plug it. I mean,
Break a
the show.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, I was trying to help Matt. That didn't work out well.
not the way you intended.
No.
No, I was just going to say, if people want to get more information, they can check out the radio show I do. Go to SpookySouthCoast.com. We have over 800 episodes, and we do a Bridgewater Triangle show every year where we send all kinds of investigative groups to the various famous locations in the Bridgewater Triangle, and they give live reports from Anawan Rock, from the Hockomock Swamp, and all of these other famous areas.
That's awesome. I think this year you should send 2 broads who may not have so much investigative experience.
2 dumbasses into the woods? That's a danger. Just, hey, dickheads, here you go. Let me know how it goes.
So it ends with 2 bitch in a ditch.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Oh, well
So what was the website again?
SpookySouthCoast.com.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, I was, when I first arrived in America, I went on Matt's show. It's really brilliantly set up.
No, it's awesome.
Tim, was it Tim? Does it?
Yeah, Tim Weisberg.
Tim, yeah, and literally Matt goes in there every Saturday night, and in the first Saturday I was in America, I went with him, and yeah, it was brilliant. It's brilliant.
That's amazing.
I mean,
Brilliant
I can only imagine. You're freaking super smart with your huge brains and all your knowledge. Can't handle it.
And don't
Too
forget the
much.
stovepipe.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
And
It's unforgettable, Matt.
I had to bring it back down to that level.
Of course.
that's where I like to end it anyway.
Yeah.
So thanks to Matt and his stovepipe cock. And thanks, what? I'm so flabbergasted. I'm like sweating. There's a lot happening.
I've never seen her at a loss for words,
It's-
Matt. That's a feat.
Thank you. I'm just imagining too much. My brain just went awry. So thank you guys for listening. Again, thanks to Matt. He's awesome. He's super smart, and it's never going to be as entertaining for you guys again because we just got trumped on our own show.
Yes.
Definitely check out his show if you can. I'm sure it's amazing. I will. I know I'm going to from now on. Usual bullshit. Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, all the fun stuff. Find us, share with your friends. All 5 of them. Let everyone know.
Tell your doctor.
Tell your doctor, tell your neighbors, tell
Your proctologist.
your
proctologist.
tell you definitely.
Especially- He's interested in asses.
Yeah.
He'll like us.
He loves things that stink. So
Well, we are all full of shit, right?
that is very true. Very true. And on that note, I'm gonna tell all of you to just go fuck the fuck off. Yay.